Hello, everybody. Welcome to that 80s Pastor Dude on YouTube. For my first video, I thought I would just take a few moments and just kind of tell you who I am and what I hope to accomplish by doing this channel. My name is Lee. I was born in 1970. In fact, here's a picture of me when I was about 4 months old. I was a cute thing. I don't know what happened. And I currently serve as the senior minister in a very small, very rural church in eastern North Carolina. And here's a picture of me and my wife taken after church. I think this was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Now, there is already a YouTube channel where I share my sermons. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, you want to hear what my preaching is like, I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. This is my third attempt now at creating and maintaining a channel where I do videos and share different things. But my motivation for this one is somewhat different than the first two times. The other two were devoted to talking about movies and music, mostly movies and mostly horror movies. And I got into it because I was a part of a group on Facebook that talks about horror movies. In fact, I still am a member of that group, and I actually helped start another one. And so I had friends and acquaintances that did this. In fact, one guy I know does this for a living now. So I decided I would do it. I would talk about the movies I watched and share my thoughts and opinions. The first channel I started lasted just about 3 years when I decided to shut it down, and that was right around the same time we moved from Pennsylvania down here to North Carolina. And I just decided I was in a new church, a new location, just different things going on. I didn't have time. But a couple of months ago, I decided to get back into it. Instead of relaunching my first channel, and it only had about 175 subscribers, I believe, I decided to start a new one, make it be a little more anonymous, and try to approach things from a more Christian viewpoint, if there's a way to do that. And last month, October of 2021, was probably my most successful time in over 3 years of producing content. I was running something called 31 Days of Halloween, where I watched at least one horror movie every day and then I did a video. And in actuality, I watched about 52 horror movies throughout the month of October, and most of them were really, really bad. They were just terrible movies. But as I watched all these movies, something happened along the way. Like I said, after watching that many movies, so you're talking at least one, sometimes two a day, I started to realize that my heart just wasn't into it, and that's not something I wanted to spend that much time doing. I do want to take just a minute and mention one of my internet friends, a guy named Derek, who was part of those horror groups. In fact, he had a YouTube channel here that had well over 1,000 subscribers. And he felt like God was leading him in a different direction, so he just shut it all down, and that really inspired me. Derek's quite a bit younger than I am, and I've been in church my whole life, and like I said, I'm 51, and now I serve as a pastor in a church, and I realized that in order to be successful on YouTube, you have to spend a lot of time. I mean, first of all, you have to watch the movies. Then you have to write down your notes and your thoughts and make the videos. And I don't have a lot of high-tech editing equipment. So a 8-minute video that I posted on YouTube, I probably had to stop and restart 2 or 3 times. Then there's the process of putting it into software and editing it and color timing it and doing all sorts of things. And then you have to actually upload it. So an 8-minute video may have 2.5 to 3 hours worth of time in it, and that's not even counting watching the movie. And given everything that I'm involved with in church, I do 2 sermons a week, one on Sunday morning, one on Sunday night. They're different sermons. I do a Wednesday night Bible study. In fact, I'm sitting up here in the office right now. It's Wednesday night, about an hour after we finish our Bible study. And then there's all the other stuff that goes along with being a preacher and a pastor. And I realized that my heart was not into devoting that much of my life watching horror movies. Now, I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor, but I'm not saying that all horror movies are bad. Some of them are well-made movies. They're very good movies and often have themes and topics that you can discuss, spiritual matters, and even Christian ideas and Christian themes. It's amazing just reading some of Stephen King's books and watching some of his movies. There's a very Christian theme to a lot of it, good versus evil. So I'm not saying there's nothing beneficial about them. However, a lot of the movies I found myself watching are just bad movies, period. They're just not very good movies. And then a lot of the subject matter is just not very wholesome and is not very good as well. So I'm neither condemning nor condoning watching horror movies, especially if you're a Christian. I'm not telling you can't watch them. But I do believe we should live according to our own personal convictions, and I just feel like at this point in my life that I need to be devoted my time to something different. I've come to the conclusion I can better utilize my time and resources. So you may be asking, then why bother doing YouTube at all? And that's a very good question. Most of the people here in my congregation that I preach and minister to are quite a bit older than me. Most of them are old enough to be my parents, and in some cases old enough to be my grandparents. My wife and I are the youngest married couple in our congregation. I'm 51 and she's 50. Now, don't get me wrong, I love being the minister to a congregation filled with older folks because they have lifetime worth of experience. And in fact, this kind of feels like what I remember church being like when I was just a kid. And I grew up in eastern North Carolina. The services we have here are not that different than the ones I remember when I was growing up. In fact, the very first church I remember was a little place called Roper, North Carolina. We use the same hymnal here in 2021 that I remember singing out of as a kid. And in fact, here's a copy of it right here. It's almost the exact same color. The original copyright date on this is 1967. Now, it's been reprinted and reprinted, but it's the same hymnal I grew up singing out of. So we're very much a traditional church, and here's the deal. I don't mind that. In fact, I absolutely love it. But I am a child of the 70s and the 80s. I started 6th grade in 1981, and there's a picture of me in 1981. Not quite as cute as I was when I was a baby, but still a little cuter than I am now. And I graduated from high school in 1988, and there you go. You see the beginnings of a glorious mullet that perhaps I'll share sometime. I am part of the original MTV generation, and you know what? I'm proud of it. That's who I am. We are Gen X, and we were Gen X before that even existed. And I believe that the culture of my youth is fertile ground for sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. The movies and music and television and video games that are a part of who I am are full of sermons and teaching points. But truthfully, in my current congregation, most of those references would be completely lost on those in the pew. They couldn't relate to it. I could do it for my own amusement, but they wouldn't get very much out of it, and in some cases might actually turn them off. Now, I do want to say that I'm not just going to talk about Christian music and Christian media, because there are a lot of Christian bands from the 80s. That's when I discovered bands like Petra and Striper and White Cross. And I love that stuff, and I'm sure they'll pop up here. But I'm just talking about the general culture. And one of the things that inspired me to think about doing this channel is that a lot of the people in my generation, Gen X, whatever you want to call us, that grew up in church for various reasons have left and don't attend anymore. And then there are those who are my age that never went to church anyway. Now, I've been in church my entire life. My mom took me to church when I was just about a week old. And in very few cases have I missed church. When I was sick, even when I wasn't taking my faith very seriously, and even when I wasn't living according to the things that I said I believe, especially in my late teens and early 20s, I still went to church. I still called myself a Christian. That was a part of who I was and who I am. And I'll go ahead and say it. I believe the Bible is the Word of God. I believe that Jesus died and he rose again. And I believe that those of us who claim to be his followers should live according to his word. Now, I've not always been successful. In fact, sometimes I've sucked at it. I hate to think about all those who I may have turned away because of my inconsistency, because I was a hypocrite. I know people, real people, in real life, who've been burned by those who call themselves Christians and then don't live like it. So it's my hope and prayer that as I use this channel, it will give me the opportunity, for starters, to make amends for just not being consistent throughout my lifetime. I hope it will give me an opportunity to just be me and talk about Jesus using the culture that helped shape who I am. In fact, I'm working on my first video, and it's going to be about Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man and the spiritual implication that I see when I think about that game. My ultimate goal is not to get thousands and thousands of followers and become a YouTube celebrity. I don't care about that. My ultimate goal is to share the love of Jesus and demonstrate it in such a way that anyone who might stumble across this and might watch it will know that he loves them and that he died for them. I don't imagine that very many people in my real world will watch this. Most of the people that I interact with on a regular basis could care less about YouTube and could care less about these videos. But I have friends literally all over the world in all different age groups. I have grown children. I have a 6-year-old grandson. And it's interesting about my age now, the things that I look back on with nostalgia. 70s, the early 80s, and even the early 90s, and we'll probably stumble around in there some. It's become kind of cool and hip, and probably using that word just shows how uncool I am. But I'm hoping to use YouTube as a tool, as an extension of my ministry. Like I said, most of the folks in my church could care less about this, but I know people who may be interested. I know people that like the same kind of things I do, whether they're my age or my children's age or even my grandson's age. So I appreciate any of you who may be watching this very first video. I do thank you for taking time to watch this. I don't take that lightly. And I do hope to see you around in the comment section. I hope we can have some conversations and discuss some of these things, even if you're not a believer, even if you disagree with me. I want to show you the love and the grace of Jesus. And I hope to have some fun as well and talk about some really cool stuff. Talk about my childhood and the stuff that, even though I'm getting to be an old man, I still love. So once again, thank you for watching. I wish you grace and peace in the name of Jesus. I'm Lee, and I'll see you next time.